Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, I'm Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. There is one statement that almost all of us have heard from our parents. Almost every parent at some point in their lives would have looked at their child and said, "If you work harder, you will be successful." That advice, as well-meaning as it is entirely off the mark. If anything, hard work just gets you digging a deeper hole. And not only is hard work the wrong advice, but it fails to acknowledge the power of luck. No parent ever turns to a kid and says, "Wait for luck, and then you can pounce." Is hard work as wrong as we're making it out to be? If you're shaking your head a little bit in disagreement, it's because we've heard this hard work mantra too many times. And we've all worked hard, but it hasn't necessarily got us the rewards that we had expected. If hard work isn't the answer, then what is? Let's find out. As always, let's look at 3 elements. The first one is hard work versus skill. The second is hard work versus what's needed. And the third one, hard work versus luck. And we'll start at the top with hard work versus luck. How many dosas do you need to make to get really good at it? A dosa is a type of pancake or crepe made from rice flour and ground pulses. It's typically served with potatoes with some kind of spiced vegetable filling. If you watch a YouTube video, the process of making a dosa seems pretty straightforward. You pour out the batter on a hot pan, and then with a circular motion, much like a crepe, you make the dosa. Over the past 3 years, I have made approximately 2,700 dosas. At the rate of 3 dosas per day, that's what I do. When we get back from our walk, I'll make a dosa, then a second one, third one, and we'll eat those 3 dosas. So 900 days, 3 dosas each, that's 2,700 dosas. It's not hard work, but it's the equivalent of hard work. You practice a lot, and you think that by now I would have made the perfect dosa. But that's not the case at all. When you go to an Indian restaurant, you'll find that their dosas are different. They're completely different from the dosas that I make. They seem to be browner, they seem to be softer, a lot like the dosas that I'm used to. Now, make no mistake, it's not that my dosas are bad. They're really crispy and they're tasty, but I can't seem to replicate the dosa that's made everywhere in thousands of restaurants and of course on YouTube. In short, we have a situation of hard work versus skill. When our elders mean to give us advice, they mix up the concept of skill and hard work. Hard work is just donkey work. You put the hours in, and they're endless hours, and you try to learn a language, or you study for an exam, or you practice a sport. And that donkey work may be pretty useful in some areas, but by and large, it's the hardest way to get from A to B. Skill, on the other hand, is when you can execute something at high speed without necessarily resorting to these hee-haw methods. Take, for instance, the act of drawing a cartoon. If you ask most people if they can draw, they seem to say one thing, and that thing is, I can't even draw a straight line. Now, Let's move this situation to an auditorium, and let's say there are 500 people in the room. There are 500 people in that audience, and you find that after a little instruction, every single one of them can draw exceedingly well. This seems bizarre, doesn't it? How can you go from not being able to draw to drawing very quickly? And what we did was we took this a little step further. We started doing a bit of a demonstration, both at our workshops and at other events. We didn't pick the crowd. They were just there. It was a random group. And we give them instructions on how to draw a whale. First, they draw their own version of a whale, and some of them look like guppies, and some of them look just like fish. But 5 minutes later, every single person in the room is drawing a whale like a professional cartoonist. In just 5 minutes, everyone's drawing of the whale has improved dramatically. When you repeat that exercise, you find that there is another massive leap. And from there on, the group can go on to draw monkeys, elephants, aardvarks, dinosaurs. Yep, dinosaurs too. Wait, isn't there something wrong with this picture that we're painting? Where's the hard work? How did the clients get suddenly talented? How did they go from drawing whales that look like guppies to an actual cartoon-like whale? And what if we were to treat this not just as a 5-minute session, but a 2-day workshop? A 2-day workshop which showed you how to draw animal cartoons. Because if we learn to draw just 3 or 4 animals per hour, we could quite easily cover about 24 animals in 6 hours. 6 hours is the average time taken for a full day workshop. With some repetition and fun exercises, the clients would then be able to draw close to 50 animals in just 2 days. Now, here's the interesting part. Most of the people sitting in that audience aren't exactly interested in drawing, don't have any confidence with their drawing, yet in 2 days they have something equivalent to a business. You see the business model, don't you? 50 cartoon animals makes for a great children's workshop. Many parents would be happy to send their kids, especially the younger ones, to learn how to express their creativity. Children are not your cup of tea? Okay. How about adults who want to learn how to relax? A workshop would work fine for them too. And if workshops itself are not that interesting to you, then you might want to make a video series. Or you could become an illustrator. So what we have here is we have training. You could train people. You have leverage. You could create a video series. You could have videos on YouTube that other people look at and you get paid for by YouTube. And of course, you have books and training. And what's happening is this sudden move from 2 days ago I couldn't draw, didn't want to draw, to now I could literally have a business. There's confidence, and notice the absolute lack of hard work in the entire exercise. And it's not like we don't already know that skill is superior to hard work. When you show up for a writing course, for instance, you've already done more than your share of hard work. You've tried to read every possible article, watch videos, do a lot of writing, too much in fact. The results are anything but rosy. And forget article writing or sales pages for a moment. Just the headline of that article might send you into a tailspin. You're not sure if it's the right type of headline, you're not sure if it'll work, you're not sure, should I do some testing with it? And all of this becomes this endless rigmarole of energy being burned, trying to figure out who to trust, what to trust, how to go about it, and you're sick of the hard work. All of those problems that you and I are having, all of the stuff stems from misplaced advice. Misplaced advice that we got as kids, then right through our teens, and then probably later as well. Hard work is the weirdest way to go through life. A simple piece of advice, a slight nudge in the right direction, and we can get to the point where we can cook, draw, write, dance, even if we were absolutely sure that we weren't born with the right genes. And it's at this point that we can do a complete U-turn as well. Because it's not like hard work doesn't work. And we're about to find out based on the story of someone that you've heard and know reasonably well. You've probably not heard of Emmanuel Agassi. He was born in Tehran, Iran, and he's the father of the tennis star Andre Agassi. By the time Andre was 6, his father was forcing him to hit 2,500 tennis balls every single day. His father's goal was for Andre to hit 1,000,000 balls a year. So he built this exclusive tennis court and he installed a machine there, a machine called the Dragon. This machine would spit balls at the younger Agassi at 110 miles per hour. But what was the result of all of this hard work? Agassi was the first male player to win all the 4 Grand Slam tournaments on 3 different surfaces. He won the Australian 4 times, the French once, Wimbledon once, US Open twice, and he was a significant finalist 15 times. It sounds like hard work does pay off, doesn't it? It sure sounds like it because we have many examples of precisely this hard work when we look at someone like Michael Phelps. Now, Michael Phelps was in the pool 3 to 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 5 whole years in a row. He didn't take a break for Christmas or even for his birthday. When we look at people around us, we know the hard workers, we know that they seem to be making it to the top of every field. And yet, if we were to look at the guy who lost to Agassi or who came second to Phelps, there is no shortage of hard work there, is there? If we were rigidly to stick to the advice, work hard and you'll be successful, we could, theoretically at least, spend 5 years non-stop in the pool and hit 1,000,000 tennis balls a year, and then we would make it, wouldn't we? And even as we hear that, there is this doubt circulating in our mind that the hard work itself is not necessarily going to get us to the top of our field. And there's a reason why hard work is so misused. Just trying to make another dosa or trying to paint yet another watercolor, that's not enough. If you dig deep into the psyche of what makes people successful, eventually they'll tell you they acquired a skill. And that skill might have taken a while, or could be something that they picked up over the last 48 hours. And incredibly, they will also mention something else. And that something else is called luck, which to most of us is likely to be the most frustrating part of this piece. If it's just luck, then why bother? If everything is predestined, then why put in the work? Is luck really such an overriding factor, or is it a small player? The answers are reasonably surprising, as we're about to find out. This takes us to the second part, where we look at hard work versus luck. When I was growing up, I read Mad Magazine a lot, but one cartoon stayed with me through all of these years, and it goes like this. A man reads about a plane crash. He sees it on TV, he hears it on the radio, and yes, he reads it on the news. And he decides plane travel is too risky, which is why he avoids the plane and he takes the train instead. And the plane, yes, it crashes on the train. Every time I think about that cartoon, the irony of luck isn't lost on me. Every time you think about how you were born and how one tiny sperm caused you to be alive, that's a pretty good description of luck versus hard work. And it's not like we don't pay homage to luck. We talk about good luck and we talk about bad luck, and we do so every single day. Yet, the moment we are asked about why we are successful, we quickly seem to credit our hard work. And that's because luck is almost impossible to fathom. Let's take a look at the story of Linda Weinman. Yes, that's the same Linda from lynda.com. And the story you read on the internet is how lynda.com was bought over by LinkedIn, and this is for a sum of $1.5 billion. But if you roll back that story, it all boils down to one lucky moment. Here's Linda telling her story.
I went into the bookstore looking for a book for my art students and realized that they weren't written for artists. They were written for programmers. And so I pitched the idea first to Peach Pit. I was actually rejected. And I couldn't find a publisher to want to publish it. So I decided to write magazine article. And I found a magazine that would let me do monthly installations and created a monthly article. And so one month I would write about how to do animated GIFs, and another month I would write about background tiles. And I was basically writing my book, but in magazine installations. And then by the time I was done with the book and I had a finished manuscript, then I had two different publishers that fought over me. One was Random House. The other was a division of Macmillan called New Writers, which ultimately got bought by Peach Pit. But I ended up going with New Writers, and I wrote the book for my art students. So I turned in the manuscript and they edited it, which they always do, and they returned the edited book to me, and it was unrecognizable. It wasn't written the same way that I had written it. I had written it in a really conversational, friendly tone, lots of pictures, and they were more of a technical publisher, and they had never had a book that was written in that kind of tone, so they had taken that whole tone out of it. And so I remember when I read the manuscript, just being so upset at how I felt they had ruined it. I spoke to another friend of mine who had a book contract, and he said, well, if you don't like what they've done with it, just tell them that you consider it to be a rejection and you want your book rights back. And so I kind of mustered up all my courage, and I called them on a Monday and just said, I'm really unhappy with this edit. And they fortunately said, okay, well, if you're unhappy with it, we'll put it back to how you did it originally. And then, they took a really big risk on me. It was a very expensive book, $55 at the time, US dollars. That was a lot, still a lot. And nobody expected it to sell out and do well, but it ended up becoming this huge best-selling book for the publisher and for me as well, which was a big turning point in my life.
There's lots of hard work and skill involved there, but you notice that there are lots of lucky moments, like she got this magazine publisher to say, yes, okay, we'll publish your articles. And then after that, her friend says, hey, you can tell the publishers if they don't like the book as it is, then you're going to change the contract. You're going to cancel the contract. And then finally, the publishers decide to go with this unknown sort of publishing book that they've never done before. In all of this, it's luck. And take this podcast, for instance. The reason you're listening to this is a result of a story that's so freakish that it sounds like it's right out of a novel. I wasn't keen on getting to New Zealand. I wasn't even keen on marketing. I didn't even bother with marketing. Our initial goal was to move from Mumbai to Bangalore, and Bangalore was this garden city of India. It had lovely cottages, it had enormous amounts of greenery, but then our luck changed. Bangalore became a hub for technology companies, and we decided to move elsewhere. Canada, perhaps, even Australia. New Zealand wasn't even on the radar. We tried to get to New Zealand, but the immigration consultant said that we wouldn't make the points. And then one day, many months later, while shopping for groceries, I got my ticket to New Zealand. My friend Joan Chenoy ran into me and she asked, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm buying groceries." And she said, No, weren't you moving to New Zealand? I said, "We tried to move there, but things didn't work out." "You should try now," she said. And then she hands me the card of her friend who was an immigration consultant at the time. When we moved to New Zealand, the only person I knew in New Zealand lived on the North Shore. And that's where we ended up. And that's where we love it, on the North Shore. But what if someone we knew lived in a different city or a different part of Auckland? What if we got to New Zealand when the dollar was really high? Our luck was so good that the dollar was at its lowest and the housing market was pretty down. My brother-in-law even offered to give us a loan for the house from his savings, and we didn't need it after all because the bank came through. But look at all of those planets lining up one by one to give us this luck. And luck can be at times almost invisible. When you look at clients on the cartooning course, many of them, not all but many, now use a tablet like the iPad. But what does the tablet do? It allows you to undo your errors. You go back just 10 years and no decent tablets existed. This meant that you either had to do battle with Photoshop or you had to have a scanner, you had to go through all of this rigmarole. In short, the amount of time and the chance for error, that just increased manifold. Plus, you had to be in a position to buy that scanner, you had to have software, and then you start to draw. Let's not forget that you had to be chained to your computer the whole time. Notice this has nothing to do with drawing at all. Someone who tried to draw just 10 years ago might have run into an endless number of frustrating points. And now that very same person could take the tablet, head to the cafe, and have a great time. While learning a skill that seems clearly out of reach, skill, not hard work, is essential. That skill might be acquired in 48 hours or 48 years, depending on what's at stake. But luck is endlessly bobbing in and out and helping us on our way. If we're really honest about ourselves, about our lives, we'll have realized that we have had enormous amount of luck, an endless run of lucky moments. And if you have any doubts about how lucky you are, think of the necessities that we take for granted. 60% of the world's population don't have access to flush toilets. They don't have adequate water-related sanitation. You and I reach for a glass of water or go to the toilet when we feel like it. We might even grumble when we don't have 2 toilets in the house. Now consider this scenario. Imagine every time you had to go to the toilet, you had to line up, you had to think in advance of, I have to go to the toilet, and then you had to line up. How many drawings would you do? How much code would you write? How much of your life as you know it now would exist if you had to line up, you had to do something as simple as that? Now that is hard work. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. It's more philosophical, this one. It's not a how-to, so there's no specific thing you have to do. But we'll continue this in part 2. And in part 2, we'll see what's needed and how you can make that luck happen for you, and not just hard work. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. Let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. If you had the bad luck of missing the cartooning course, well, now you have to wait for a whole year. But you still have time to join the headline course, and that starts on the 13th of July. That's not starting on 13th of July, but the seats are available on the 13th of July. And this is a very cool course. This is one of those courses where you see skill really unfolding. You struggled so much to write headlines to begin with, so much. And then by the end of the course, you can write 8 headlines, 8 different types of headlines, and you can do this in 10 minutes. You can do this for any industry, not just your company, but for anyone's company. Not that you'd want to do it, but it helps to know. That's how good you get. Every single one of the headlines are curious. Every single one of the headlines are amazing. And we learn not only how to make the headlines, but how to break the headlines. If you've ever wondered why the courses at Psychotactics fill up so quickly, it's because we promised this skill. And you can see how that skill is built week after week. So in effect, what you're getting are 2 courses. You get the headline course, but you also get an insider's view on how a course is conducted. So there you go. It's a very good course. Get on the waiting list at psychotactics.com/HL. That's headlines. So psychotactics.com/HL. That's me, Sean D'Souza, saying bye for now and good luck. Bye-bye.